I'd really like to know up front what you want to know about networking. Now, I know you're here as members of the chamber, but I'd like us to have a dialogue. If I never get to a slide, that's just fine. So I'd like to hear what your questions are about networking. Do you have any? I'll tell you what, to get us started, pick a spokesperson for each table. Spokespeople, it is your job to record your table's questions about networking. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to come up with as many as you can. The table that has the most questions wins. Time's up. Pencils down, or you're going to be penalized if you keep writing. Come on back, folks. By the way, I'm going to ask you different times to talk, and it's kind of like trying to stop a speeding freight train, so if you'd pay attention and come on back when I ask you to. How many of you came up with 5 questions about networking? At least. Oh, 5. Give them a hand. They win. How many of you never even had a question about networking and you were totally befuddled when I asked you? Raise your hands. Come on. Yeah, it's not foremost on your mind. But how did they find Saddam Hussein? Network science, actually. Yeah, in 2005, the Army did research. And that research was specifically to ask the question, is network science a valid science? And they interviewed over 2,000 scientists from engineering to physics to chemistry to biological to psychological sciences. And the conclusion was yes, there are distinct units that are worthy of study. Just as physics has the atom and electrons and a nucleus, so network science has, this is a $10,000 question. Who knows what the primary unit of network science is? And each one of you is one of them. You are a node. Okay, network science studies the links between nodes. And this is something that as a business person, it will help you to understand. 3 nodes connected to each other represent a cluster. A supercluster is a hub. And a hub, so there are roughly 13,000 airports in the United States. Would you rather have $1 for each person that goes through 20% of those airports randomly chosen, or $1 for each of the people that goes through the 10 largest airports? How many want the 20% of 13,000 airports? It's obvious, isn't it? Because it's randomly selected, we can't give you an exact number, but it's generally in the neighborhood of 3,000 times more. If you want to help your business succeed, then network science is something to begin understanding. The rules of network science are dramatically different than the rules of the old economy. In the old economy, the game was get as many secrets as you can and keep them as tight to yourself as you can. We'll go into this in a little bit. But most people think of networking as you come to an event like this and you talk to people. I am going to address that, but some of you are exquisite networkers already. And so one of the things that I do is I've worked with Nobel Prize winners, for Fortune 50 CEOs, all the way down to individual entrepreneurial startups. I prefer the individual entrepreneurs. They have more control over their existence. And one thing over which you have absolute control is your contact with other human beings. How much you do and how much quality there is to it. Your success in business is a function of quantity and quality. How many people do you touch and do you have touch you? And what is the quality of your touch with them? This is really where I come into this. I'm a child of the 60s, and my primary interest is human potential. So the primary question we engage in our research in the book Transformed, The Science of Spectacular Living, which is the results of us studying people that have spectacular lives. And spectacular, by definition for us, has nothing to do with how much money you have. It has nothing to do with your health, your fitness. Well, actually, it has something to do with that. But what it really has to do with is a fulfilling, highly engaging career that causes you to learn, grow, and even transform and be someone you never dreamt you would become. It has to do with having a very high-quality family life. The divorce rate in the people we studied was under 4%. And many of them had long-term marriages. Their children tended to thrive. They tend to be leaders in their religions, and that was all the way from Muslim to Jewish to Christian. It really didn't matter. They lived their faith more fully, whatever it was. So a spectacular life to us is about quality rather than quantity of any one thing. And networking is something that people that have spectacular lives do automatically. And Amy was at a presentation that I did with American Family Insurance. She did a full day on networking, where we went into online networking, social media networking, and stuff like that. I'm going to speak in the abstract today, and my biggest interest is the quality. Now, I'd like to get some of your questions, since you used to had 5 of them, and many of us had no questions at all. By the way, that is how they found Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. We've all heard about the chauffeur, but how they get to the chauffeur and how they do this. The Army actually has turned network science into a key element of warfighting. The understanding of concentrations, no longer is it army against army, as we're learning. In Vietnam, it became obvious, and only the Marines really understood this, that it's really about hearts and minds of the population with your cause. And if we don't win the hearts and minds of the population, we're learning the hard way, we lose. No matter how powerful we are, no longer do the rules of domination follow the way they did before, just as network science rules don't. So please. Used to be, well, I'm not going to follow up for 2 weeks. I don't want them to think I'm too hungry. Not anymore. They forgot you in 2 days. We have so many new contacts in our lives that immediacy is central. And the question is, how often? Well, there's a lot of us from my generation. So we go, no, I don't want them to really be bothered by me because I'll turn them off. How many of you relate to that one? Oh, come on. We're going to have to talk, but that is no longer the rule. The rule is often. And if they're going to pay attention to you, they're going to pay attention to you. You probably went into their spam filter the first time, and it's just amazing that we need to have frequency. So we need to have immediacy and frequency. These are new rules of how things work. These are great questions. Our interest is transformational networking. What's that one move that breaks your business open? What's that one thing that takes you to an unimaginable, height, that gets your products into Walmart, that gets, everybody in Bartlett doing business with your firm? And the bummer in this is that that transformation happens at what's called the weak links. So your goal in network science is to become a hub. You want to have as many links from as many nodes into you as possible. You also want to notice your hubs. So in very simple terms, the more hubs you touch, the better. and the more you penetrate the hub, the better. But the bummer is, transformation happens at the weak links.